The Galactic Council convened in the depths of Station Kepler 442, a massive structure hidden within the electromagnetic storms of the Veil Nebula. The chamber itself was older than most civilizations in the known galaxy, its walls inscribed with warnings in dead languages. Only the highest representatives of the founding species were permitted entry, and even they arrived with a sense of dread that made their movements slow and careful, Ambassador. Valkoth of the Azurian Collective adjusted his sensory appendages as he took his place at the circular table. His blue skin shimmered under the dim lighting, and his multiple eyes scanned the room with obvious nervousness. Beside him sat High Chancellor Miraset of the Threnian Empire, her crystalline form refracting the dim light into fractured rainbows that danced across the ancient stone walls. Across from them, the hulking form of Warmaster Grondar represented the Karathi Dominion. His scarred carapace, a testament to centuries of battle and conflict, crossed dozens of star systems. The silence in the chamber was heavy and oppressive. Each of the council members knew why they had been summoned to this forbidden place. Each of them carried the weight of secrets that had been kept from the rest of the galaxy for thousands upon thousands of years. The very air seemed to press down on them with the gravity of their responsibility and the magnitude of what they were about to discuss. Velkoth was the first to break the silence. His voice carried the weight of unease and concern as he spoke slowly and deliberately. He said that they should not be in this place. He reminded the others that the ancient accords were clear and specific. He stated that this chamber was sealed, except in cases of existential threat to the entire galactic community. His words hung in the air like a challenge, daring the others to justify this breach of protocol. Miraset turned her crystalline head toward him, and her voice was sharp as broken glass when she responded. She said that if he understood the rules, then he must understand why they were gathered here today. She explained that the humans had advanced too quickly for anyone's comfort or planning. She told him that in merely 200 cycles since their first warp signature had been detected, they had colonized 47 different star systems across multiple sectors. She added that they had reverse-engineered technologies that had took the founding species, millennia, to develop through careful research and gradual understanding. She finished by stating that now the humans were asking dangerous questions that no one had anticipated they would ever think to ask. Gron. Dar slammed a massive fist on the table with enough force to make the entire structure shudder. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. He growled that these were questions the council could not answer. He declared that these were questions they had all sworn sacred oaths never to address with any outsider species. His anger was palpable and filled the room with tension that made even the battle-hardened warriors uncomfortable on the far side of the chamber. A holographic projection suddenly flickered to life with a soft humming sound. It displayed a human vessel that was sleek and predatory in its design. Bearing the name USS Endeavour painted across its hull in bold letters, the ship looked dangerous and capable, a far cry from the primitive vessels humanity had launched into space just a few short centuries ago. Captain Jake Morrison's image appeared beside the ship projection, frozen mid-sentence during a diplomatic transmission he had sent to the council just days before. Miraset gestured toward the projection with one of her crystalline appendages. She continued speaking in that same sharp tone that cut through the air. She said that this particular human had discovered inconsistencies in the historical records that the council had carefully maintained for generations. She explained that he had somehow managed to piece together fragments of what she called the truth from scattered data points across multiple archive systems. She warned that if Captain Morrison shared his findings with Earth's government, the consequences would be absolutely catastrophic for everyone involved. Velkoth's appendages began to tremble visibly as he processed what Miraset was telling them. He asked what she proposed they do about this situation. He reminded her that they could not simply eliminate the humans without drawing attention. He pointed out that the other species in the galaxy would certainly notice if an entire human crew disappeared under mysterious circumstances. He added that the younger races had begun to look up to humanity now as examples of what determination and innovation could achieve. Miraset's voice turned even colder as she responded. She said that this admiration from younger species was precisely the problem they now faced. She stated flatly that humans were never meant to rise this far in galactic society. She explained that they were never part of the original plan that the founders had established so long ago. Her words carried implications that went far deeper than simple political maneuvering or territorial disputes. The other council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They all knew what Miracet was implying. They all carried the burden of the same terrible secret. The humans were different from every other species in the known galaxy, and that difference made them incredibly dangerous in ways that the younger races could never understand. Without knowing the full history of galactic civilization, Velkoff leaned forward and asked again, "What specific action Miracet proposed?" He said they needed a plan that would contain this situation without creating an even larger crisis. He reminded everyone that humanity had allies now among several of the younger species. He warned that any action taken against the humans would need to be carefully calculated and precisely executed. Grondar spoke up again, his voice like grinding stone. He said that perhaps they had been too cautious for too long. He suggested that maybe the time had come to take more direct action, regardless of the political consequences. He argued that the secret they protected was more important than any diplomatic relationship or political alliance. His words sent a chill through the chamber, because everyone knew what direct action meant in Karathi military terminology. Miracet raised one crystalline hand to silence further debate. She said that before they decided on any course of action, they needed to understand exactly how much Captain Morrison and his crew had discovered. She explained that they needed to know whether the humans had simply found scattered pieces of information or whether they had somehow managed to reconstruct the entire hidden history that the Council had worked so hard to bury and obscure. The holographic display changed to show data streams and communication logs. Miracet manipulated the controls and brought up several files that human scientists had been accessing from various galactic archives. The pattern of their research was clear and methodical. They were not stumbling around blindly, but rather following a logical trail that would eventually lead them directly to the truth that the Council had sworn to protect. Velkoff studied the data carefully, and his concern deepened with each passing moment. He said that the humans were being systematic in their approach. He noted that they were cross-referencing information from multiple independent sources. He observed that they were looking for contradictions and inconsistencies in the official historical records. He concluded that this was not accidental discovery, but rather deliberate investigation. By trained scientific minds, Grondar demanded to know who had given the humans access to these archive systems in the first place. He wanted to know which council member had been careless enough to allow outsiders into databases that contained sensitive historical information. His accusatory tone made several of the other representatives shift nervously in their positions. Miracet explained that the humans had not needed special permission to access most of these archives. She said that the information was technically public and available to all member species of the galactic community. She added that the Council had never imagined that anyone would think to look for these specific patterns across such widely separated data sources. She admitted that they had underestimated human curiosity and analytical capability. The chamber fell silent again as the Council members contemplated their options. They were trapped between their sworn duty to protect the ancient secret and their obligations to maintain peaceful relations with an increasingly important member species of the galactic community. The weight of thousands of years of deception pressed down on them all. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour, studying the data streams flowing across multiple displays that surrounded his command station. The soft blue glow of the screens illuminated his face as he concentrated on the patterns emerging from weeks of careful research and analysis. Beside him, his chief science officer, Dr. Lisa Grant, worked frantically to compile their findings into a coherent report that would make sense to anyone who reviewed their work. The rest of the bridge crew maintained their posts with professional efficiency, completely unaware of the magnitude of what their captain and science officer had uncovered. During their investigation of galactic historical records, Lisa looked up from her console and called out to the captain. Her voice was tight with tension and excitement mixed together in a way that made several crew members glance in her dear Ikshan. She told Jake that she had successfully cross-referenced the archaeological records from the Thrinian archives with the geological surveys from the Azurian homeworld. She added that the timeline did not match up at all. She emphasized that the discrepancy was not even close to being within acceptable margins of error for ancient, historical dating methods. Jake immediately moved to stand beside her and leaned over her shoulder to examine the data she had compiled. He told her to show him exactly what she had found. His tone was calm, but carried an undercurrent of urgency that made Lisa work even faster to bring up the relevant information on her main display screen. Lisa pulled up a comparative chart that showed two different timeline projections side by side with color-coded highlights marking the major discrepancies. She explained that according to official Galactic Council records, the Thrinians had achieved faster-than-light travel approximately 47,000 years ago. She noted that the Azorians claimed their civilization was 62,000 years old and had been spacefaring for most of that time. She paused to let that information sink in before continuing. She then directed Jake's attention to a highlighted section of geological data. She pointed out that the oldest Thrinian structures they had actually found through archaeological surveys were barely 15,000 years old. She added that the Azurian homeworld showed clear signs of industrial development dating back only 12,000 years, according to soil contamination patterns and atmospheric composition changes. Jake processed this information carefully and spoke slowly as he considered the implications. He said that this was a very significant discrepancy that could not be explained by simple record-keeping errors. He asked Lisa if she had verified her data sources and confirmed that the geological surveys were accurate and not corrupted by transmission errors or equipment malfunctions. Lisa assured him that she had triple-checked everything and even had the ship's computer run independent verification algorithms. She said the data was solid and reliable. She then told him that the situation got even worse than just timeline inconsistencies. She explained that she had been analyzing the linguistic patterns of all the founding species using advanced comparative linguistic software. She noted that their languages, despite supposedly evolving on completely different worlds with radically different atmospheric compositions and evolutionary pressures, all shared a common root structure at their deepest levels. She stated that this was statistically impossible according to every model of language evolution that humanity had ever developed. She said it was impossible unless all these species came from the same original place or were created by something else entirely. Jake finished her thought out loud. He said unless they all came from the same place or were created by something else. The words hung in the air between them like a physical presence. Both of them understood what this meant, but neither wanted to be the first to say it. Directly, the bridge suddenly became very quiet as other crew members began to notice the serious conversation happening between their captain and science officer. Navigation Officer Ben Harris turned from his console at the front of the bridge. He reported that they were receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. He added that the Council was requesting their immediate presence at Station Kepler 442 in the Veil Nebula. He noted that the transmission was marked as urgent and came with highest priority routing codes. Jake and Lisa exchanged meaningful glances. Lisa whispered quietly, so only Jake could hear. She said that the Council knew what they had discovered. Her face had gone pale with the realization of what this summons might mean. Jake replied in an equally quiet voice. He said, of course, the Council knew. He added that they probably had monitoring systems watching for exactly this kind of research pattern. He straightened up and raised his voice to address the bridge crew. He told Harris to send confirmation of their receipt of the transmission. He instructed him to tell the Council that the Endeavor would arrive at Station Kepler 442 within one standard day. He then turned to Lisa and gave her specific orders. He told her to encrypt all their findings immediately using the highest level security protocols available. He said to create multiple redundancies and backup copies. He explained that if something happened to them or to the ship, he wanted this information to reach Earth, no matter what obstacles might be placed in their way. Lisa nodded and began working on the encryption protocols right away. Her fingers flew across her console as she implemented multiple layers of security and set up automatic transmission triggers that would activate if certain conditions were met. She created copies of all their research and scattered them across various secure servers and communication buoys that the Endeavor had deployed during their mission. As the Endeavor changed course toward the Veil Nebula, Jake returned to his command chair and sat down heavily. He could not shake the feeling that they were sailing toward something far more dangerous than any first contact scenario he had ever trained for at the Academy. This was not about meeting a new species or negotiating a trade agreement. This was about uncovering secrets that powerful entities had worked very hard to keep hidden for reasons that were probably very good and very frightening. The ship's engines hummed as they accelerated to maximum sustainable warp speed. The crew went about their duties with practiced efficiency, but there was an undercurrent of tension that everyone could feel. Even if they did not fully understand its source, word had spread quickly through the ship that something significant was happening, and that the captain and science officer had discovered something important. Jake stared at the view screen showing the stars streaking past as they traveled faster than light toward their destination. He thought about all the times humanity had looked up at those stars and wondered what secrets they held. He thought about all the generations of humans who had dreamed of traveling to other worlds and meeting alien civilizations. He wondered what those dreamers would think if they knew that the reality was so much more complicated and potentially dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. Lisa finished setting up the encryption and backup systems. She moved to stand beside Jake's chair. She spoke quietly so the rest of the bridge crew would not overhear. She told him that everything was secured and ready. She said that if they did not check in with Earth within 72 hours, the data would automatically transmit through every available channel. She added that she had also programmed the ship's computer to scatter additional copies throughout local space if it detected certain threat conditions. Jake thanked her and told her she had done excellent work. He then asked her what she thought they were walking into. He wanted her professional opinion as a scientist about what kind of response they should expect from the Galactic Council. Lisa considered the question carefully before answering. She said that if their findings were correct, and they had uncovered evidence of a massive historical deception that had been maintained for thousands of years. She noted that the founding species had built their entire political structure and cultural identity on their ancient histories. She suggested that having those histories revealed as fraudulent would be catastrophic for their credibility and authority. She concluded that the Council would do almost anything to prevent this information from becoming public knowledge. Jake asked if she thought they were in actual danger. He wanted to know if she believed the Council would resort to violence or coercion to protect their secrets. Lisa looked at him with serious eyes. She said she honestly did not know. She noted that humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council had always been cordial and professional. She added that they had never seen any evidence of the Council acting with direct aggression toward member species. She admitted, however, that they had never threatened to expose something this fundamental before. She finished by saying that they were in completely uncharted territory and should be prepared for any possibility. The docking procedure at Station Kepler 442 was unlike anything Jake had experienced in his entire career as a starship captain. The station's automated systems guided the Endeavor through multiple layers of security fields. It did far more than simple scanning. These fields seemed to probe deep into the ship itself, examining not just the hull and cargo, but somehow reaching into the minds of those aboard. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation at the base of his skull as they passed through each layer. Several crew members reported similar uncomfortable feelings. When he and Lisa finally disembarked from their ship, they were immediately met by an escort of 6 Korathi warriors standing at rigid attention. Their weapons were prominently displayed on their armor in a way that left no doubt about the serious nature of this meeting. Lisa muttered under her breath as they walked behind their armed escort. She said this was quite a friendly greeting for what was supposed to be a diplomatic discussion. Her attempt at humor did little to ease the tension they both felt. The Korathi warriors led them through corridors that seemed designed to absorb sound itself. Their footsteps made almost no noise on the dark metal floors. The walls were smooth and featureless, giving no indication of where they were within the massive station. Jake tried to memorize the route they took, but quickly lost track after the 7th or 8th turn through identical passageways. He realized this was probably intentional. The station was designed to disorient visitors and prevent them from finding their way without guidance. After what felt like an eternity of walking, they arrived at a massive door that towered at least 20 meters high. The surface was marked with symbols that Jake recognized from ancient Earth mythology. There were warnings against hubris and against seeking forbidden knowledge carved in languages that predated human civilization by thousands of years. Jake wondered how these particular symbols had ended up here in a station built by alien species. The thought sent a chill down his spine. The doors opened with a deep groan that spoke of tremendous age and massive weight. The sound echoed through the corridors behind them. Jake and Lisa stepped forward into the chamber beyond. The interior was dimly lit by some source that Jake could not immediately identify. The council members sat in a semicircle arrangement that put the two humans at the focal point of everyone's attention. Their forms cast long shadows across the floor that seemed to move and shift in the uncertain light. Jake noticed immediately that these were not the usual representatives that Earth typically dealt with during normal diplomatic functions. These beings carried themselves with an authority and gravitas that marked them as the true power brokers of the galaxy. Miracet spoke first, her crystalline voice cutting through the silence like a blade. She addressed them formally. She said that Captain Morrison and Dr. Grant had been quite thorough in their research efforts. Her tone was neutral, but carried an undercurrent of something that might have been respect or might have been threat. Jake replied evenly and kept his voice steady despite the intimidating circumstances. He said they were scientists and explorers. He added that thorough research and investigation was simply what they did. He refused to show any fear or uncertainty, even though he felt plenty of both. Velkoth leaned forward in his seat and asked a direct question. He wanted to know exactly what Jake and Lisa thought they had discovered through their investigation. His multiple eyes focused intently on the two humans. Lisa stepped forward with her tablet, held confidently in both hands. She had prepared for this moment during the entire journey to the station. She spoke clearly and professionally. She stated that they had discovered concrete evidence that the founding species of the Galactic Council had systematically falsified their historical records. She explained that their civilizations were far younger than they publicly claimed to be. She added that furthermore, their species all shared genetic markers that strongly suggested engineered origins, rather than natural evolutionary development. She noted that the probability of such similarities occurring naturally was effectively zero, according to all accepted models of biology and evolution. The chamber fell completely silent. After Lisa finished speaking, the weight of her words seemed to press down on everyone present. Grandar shifted uncomfortably in his massive seat. His hand moved slowly toward the weapon mounted on his armor. The gesture was subtle, but Jake noticed it immediately and tensed in response. Jake decided to reveal the rest of what they had found. He said there was something else they had discovered during their research. He explained that they had detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the galactic core. He noted that these signatures matched the technological patterns of devices that the Council claimed belonged to ancient history, and were no longer functional. He stated that someone or something was still there at the galactic core. He added that whatever it was remained active even after all these thousands of years. Miracet's crystalline form seemed to dim noticeably when Jake mentioned the galactic core. Her voice became quieter and more strained. She said that Jake should not have looked so deeply into matters that did not concern his species. She said this in a way that sounded almost like genuine concern rather than anger. Jake felt his own anger rising at her words. He demanded to know if she was threatening them. He took a half step forward and squared his shoulders. He was not going to be intimidated into backing down from the truth. Velkoth spoke quickly before the situation could escalate further. He said that Miracet was not threatening them at all. He explained that she was actually trying to protect them from knowledge that carried terrible consequences. He said they were all trying to protect humanity. His tone was sincere and carried a weight of genuine emotion that caught Jake off guard. Lisa insisted that they deserved to know. the truth. She said that if there was something dangerous that the Council was afraid of, then humanity had a right to understand what that danger was. She argued that keeping them in ignorance was not protection but rather abandonment. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. The council members exchanged long glances with each other. Some kind of silent conversation passed between these different species that had worked together for thousands of years. They seemed to be debating something without speaking any words out loud. Finally, after several long moments, Miracet appeared to come to some kind of decision. She said that they would tell Jake and Lisa everything. She said the humans deserved to know what they had stumbled upon through their investigation. She warned them, however, that once they heard the full truth, there would be no returning to the innocence of ignorance. She said that some knowledge carried a burden that could never be set down. She asked if they were truly prepared to carry that weight for the rest of their lives. Jake and Lisa looked at each other. They had come too far to turn back now. Jake spoke for both of them. He said they were ready to hear whatever the council had to tell them. He added that humanity had always chosen knowledge over comfortable ignorance. He stated that they would face whatever truth existed rather than hide from it. Miracet made a gesture with one of her crystalline appendages. The walls of the ancient chamber suddenly came alive with moving images. Holographic projections filled the air around them, showing stars and worlds and civilizations that rose and fell like waves on an endless ocean. The display was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Miracet began to speak in a voice that carried the weight of thousands of years of hidden history. She said that the founding species were not the first advanced civilizations in the galaxy. She said that they themselves were never truly free. She paused to let those words sink in before continuing with the story that would change everything. Jake and Lisa thought they knew about the galaxy and their place in it. Velkoth took over the narrative. He said that long ago, before any of the current civilizations existed, there was another race. He said they called themselves the Architects. He explained that they were so incredibly advanced that their technology could not be distinguished from the fundamental forces of nature itself. He described how they had shaped entire worlds and created life across thousands of star systems. He said they had guided evolution and development with purposes that even now remained difficult. To fully understand, the holographic images shifted to show structures that dwarfed planets and ships that harvested energy directly from stars. Jake and Lisa watched in stunned silence as the true history of the galaxy unfolded before their eyes. Everything they thought they knew was being rewritten. Every assumption they had made about galactic civilization was being torn apart and rebuilt into something far stranger and more frightening than they could have imagined. The holographic display showed a galaxy that was teeming with life in ways that the current galaxy could barely imagine. Jake and Lisa watched in fascination as the images revealed countless worlds connected by vast networks of energy and technology. Stars were positioned differently than they appeared now, and the nebulae had different shapes and colors. This was clearly the galaxy as it existed millions of years in the distant past, long before any of the current civilizations had emerged from their home worlds. Velkoth continued the narrative that would explain everything Jake and Lisa had discovered. He said that the beings known as the Architects were a race so incredibly advanced that their capabilities seemed like magic or divine power to anyone who came after them. He explained that they had developed technology that was indistinguishable from the fundamental forces of nature itself. He described how they could shape entire worlds to their specifications and create new forms of life from basic organic compounds. He said they had guided evolution across thousands of different star systems for purposes that even now were not entirely clear. The holographic images shifted to show towering structures that made planets look small by comparison. There were vessels that could harvest the energy of entire stars and convert it into usable power. There were beings of pure thought that existed beyond any physical form and could travel across space without needing ships or equipment. The Architects had achieved a level of advancement that no current civilization could even approach. Miracet took over the story from Velkoth. Her crystalline voice carried a heavy burden of shame as she spoke. She said that the founding species, including the Thrinians and Azurians and Karathi, were all children of the Architects. She explained that they had been created deliberately to serve specific purposes in the grand design that the architects had envisioned. She's stated that the Therinians were meant to be artists and historians who would preserve beauty and knowledge. She noted that the Azorians were designed to be diplomats and administrators who would manage the complex systems of galactic civilization. She added that the Korathi were engineered to be warriors and protectors who would defend against threats. Lisa felt her breath catch in her throat as the full implications became clear. She spoke softly and said that the founding species were genetically engineered. She said they had been tailored to fulfill specific roles in a civilization that was not their own. Her voice carried a mixture of scientific fascination and human empathy for what this must mean to the species gathered before them. Grondar answered her with a voice like grinding stone. He confirmed that everything she said was absolutely correct. He explained that for millennia, the created species had served faithfully in the roles that the architects had designed them to fill. He said they had been content with their purpose and proud to be part of something greater than themselves. He noted that the architects had been good masters who provided for their created children and guided them with wisdom, accumulated over countless ages. The holographic display shifted again to show something different and far more disturbing. The images now depicted catastrophe on a scale that was difficult to comprehend. Stars were going dark across entire sectors of the galaxy. Worlds were crumbling, as if reality itself was coming apart at the seams. Space appeared to be tearing open in ways that violated every known law of physics. Velkoth explained what they were seeing with obvious reluctance. He said that the architects had grown distant over time, as they became obsessed with projects that went far beyond anything they had attempted before. He stated that they began experimenting with forces that even their incredible technology and knowledge could not fully control or understand. He described how they had been searching for something beyond the limits of normal space and time. He said they wanted to break through the barriers that separated their reality from other dimensions that existed alongside their own. The images showed the architects opening doorways into spaces that should have remained forever sealed. Through those doorways came something that defied description or understanding. It was not matter or energy in any conventional sense. It was something that existed outside the normal rules of reality. It was hungry in ways that had nothing to do with physical consumption. It wanted to consume existence itself, Velkoth said that something had come through the doorways from outside their dimension. He explained that it was a force or entity or collection of entities that existed in ways no one in this reality could properly understand. He noted that the architects immediately realized their terrible mistake and threw everything they had at this invasion from beyond. He described a war that lasted for thousands of years and consumed resources on a scale that was almost impossible to imagine. He said that in their final act of desperation, the architects succeeded in driving the side back through the doorways and sealing the breaches they had created. Mirasek continued the story with a voice that trembled slightly. She said that the cost of victory had been absolutely everything the architects possessed. She explained that they had sacrificed their physical forms and their civilization and their very existence as individual beings. She stated that what remained of them now lay dormant in the galactic core, maintaining the seals that kept the outside from breaking through again to normal space. The holographic display zoomed in on the galactic core and revealed a structure so vast that it defied all comprehension. Networks of pure energy were woven through stars themselves, all converging on a single point at the exact center of the galaxy. The complexity and scale of what they were seeing made both Jake and Lisa feel dizzy and small. Velkoth gestured toward the display as he spoke. He said that the energy signatures Jake and Lisa had detected during their research were the last echoes of the architects. He explained that they continued to keep watch over their prison, even in their greatly diminished state. He noted that they had given up everything to protect the galaxy from the horror they had accidentally unleashed. He added that they would maintain that vigil until the end of time itself, if necessary. Lisa found her voice and asked about the falsified histories. She wanted to know why the founding species had lied about their origins and created fake records of ancient civilizations that never existed in the way they claimed. Miraset admitted the truth. With obvious shame in her crystalline voice, she said that when the architects fell, their created children suddenly found themselves free for the first time in their existence. She explained that they built their own civilizations and developed their own cultures without guidance or control. She said they had wanted desperately to believe they had always been free. She noted that they wanted to think of themselves as natural beings who earned their place in the cosmos through their own merits, rather than through the design of their creators. She added that the shame of being created rather than evolved was too much for them to bear. Grandar spoke up and added more reasoning to the deception. He said that beyond their personal shame there was a more practical concern. He explained that they feared what would happen if the younger races learned the truth about galactic history. He stated that if other species knew the founders of the Galactic Council were themselves created beings, they might begin asking dangerous questions. He said that if they learned about the architects and their incredible power, they might seek that same power for themselves. He warned that any attempt to disturb the seals at the galactic core could have catastrophic consequences for everyone. Jake felt the weight of everything they had learned settling over him like a physical burden. He asked where humanity fit into all of this. He wanted to know what made humans so different that it terrified the council, enough to bring them to this forbidden chamber. The council members exchanged glances that carried layers of meaning Jake could not fully interpret. Velkoth spoke slowly and carefully as he answered the question. He said that what terrified them most about humanity was something very specific and very significant. He explained that humans were not created by the architects like the founding species had been. He stated that humanity had evolved naturally, without any guidance or shaping by ancient powers. He added that humans represented something the created species could never be. He finished by saying that humans were truly free in a way that the founding species would never fully understand. The silence that followed Velkos's words stretched. For what felt like an eternity in the ancient chamber, Jake and Lisa stood in the center of the room, processing the enormous weight of everything they had just learned. The founding species of the Galactic Council, the civilizations that humanity had looked up to as examples of successful spacefaring cultures, were all products of deliberate genetic engineering. By being so advanced they seemed like gods. And humanity, dismissed by some as primitive newcomers to the galactic stage, was perhaps the only naturally evolved intelligent species in this entire region of space. Miraset finally broke the silence with her crystalline voice. She said that they had brought Jake and Lisa to this place to offer them a choice. She explained that the information they had gathered and the conclusions they had drawn were extremely dangerous. She stated that if humanity learned about the architects, their species' natural curiosity would inevitably drive them to investigate further. She warned that humans would seek out the galactic core and attempt to understand technologies that had destroyed a civilization infinitely more advanced than any that existed today. Lisa spoke flatly, without any emotion in her voice. She said that the council wanted them to bury all their findings. She stated it as fact rather than as a question, because the implication was already clear. Velkoth responded carefully and chose his words with obvious deliberation. He said they wanted Jake and Lisa to consider the consequences of their actions. He explained that the seals holding back the outside were incredibly old and growing weaker with each passing millennium. He noted that the sacrifice the architects made still held, but it was not eternal. He warned that if humanity disturbed the galactic core or inadvertently damaged the seals in any way, the outside would break through again into normal space. He added that this time, there would be no architects left to stand against the invasion. He said that every living thing in the galaxy would be consumed. Jake walked slowly around the chamber while his mind worked through the problem they faced. He said that the council was asking them to lie to their own people. He noted that they wanted humanity kept in the dark about the true nature of the galaxy they inhabited. His voice carried frustration and anger at being put in this impossible position. Grondar spoke with his voice like grinding stone. He said they were asking Jake and Lisa to protect their species. He explained that the founding races had protected all the younger civilizations in this same way. He stated that the burden of this knowledge had weighed on them for 15,000 years. He noted that they had maintained the deception. It's not because they were cruel, but because it was absolutely necessary for survival. Jake stopped walking and turned to face the council members directly. He challenged them with a simple question. He asked what would happen when another species eventually discovered the truth. He pointed out that someone else's scientists would eventually start asking the same questions that he and Lisa had asked. He wanted to know how long the council thought they could maintain this deception. Miracet responded with a coldness in her voice that made the temperature seem to drop. She said that they managed such situations when they arose. She added that they had managed similar problems before. The implications of her words hung in the air like poison gas. Lisa moved closer to Jake and spoke quietly but with determination. She started to say that they could not simply ignore what they had learned. Her voice carried both fear and conviction. Jake interrupted her gently. He said he understood what she was trying to say. He then turned back to address the council with a stronger voice. He told them that he understood their position completely. He said he even understood their fear about what might happen if the truth became widely known. He stated, however, that they were asking the wrong thing from humanity. His words carried a confidence that seemed to surprise the council members. Velkoff demanded that. Jake explained what he meant by that statement. His multiple eyes focused intently on the human captain. Jake straightened his uniform and his voice grew, even stronger as he laid out his argument. He said that the council wanted them to bury the truth and continue the lie that had been maintained for thousands of years. He noted that this approach was not how humanity typically operated. He explained that humans did not respond well to deception, even when that deception was meant to protect them. He warned that if this information eventually came out, and it always eventually came out, the backlash would completely destroy any trust between humanity and the rest of the galactic community. Jake paused to let his words sink in before continuing. He said there was another option that the council had not considered. He proposed that they tell the truth instead of continuing to hide it. He suggested telling the truth not just to humanity, but to all the younger races in the galaxy. He said they should share the burden of this knowledge, instead of bearing it alone in secret. Grondar rose from his seat with obvious anger. He roared that Jake's suggestion was complete madness. He declared that revealing the truth would doom them all. His massive form was intimidating, but Jake held his ground without flinching. Jake countered the argument calmly. He asked if his suggestion would truly doom everyone, or if it would give the galaxy a chance to face the threat together. He reminded Grondar that the War Master had said the seals were weakening. He asked how long they would last. He wanted to know if they had another 1,000 years or 10,000 years before the seals failed completely. He demanded to know what would happen when they did fail. And none of the younger races had any understanding of what they were facing because the council had kept them deliberately ignorant. Miracet's crystalline form flickered with what might have been agitation or uncertainty. She said that Jake was overestimating his species' ability to handle such disturbing information. She suggested that humans would panic or react irrationally when faced with the truth. About the architects and the outside, Jake acknowledged that she might be partially correct. He said maybe humans would struggle with the information initially. He then offered an alternative perspective. He suggested that perhaps the council was underestimating what beings who evolved without the architect's guidance were truly capable of achieving. He explained that the founding species were created to fulfill specific, predetermined roles. He noted that humanity evolved through natural selection to adapt and overcome challenges. He said that humans faced the unknown and turned it into the known through determination and ingenuity. He stated that this ability to adapt was the fundamental result of natural evolutionary pressure creating survivors. Lisa pulled up her tablet and added her support to Jake's argument. She said that the data they had collected was already encrypted and scheduled for automatic transmission to Earth if they failed to check in regularly. She noted that Captain Morrison was absolutely right about the situation. She argued that this was no longer just about humanity anymore. She stated that if the seals were truly failing, then every species in the galaxy needed to know the truth. She emphasized that they all needed time to prepare for what might be coming. Velkoff asked a practical question in a quiet voice. He wanted to know how they proposed to manage the inevitable panic that would follow such a revelation. He asked how they would prevent every ambitious warlord or reckless explorer from attempting to reach the galactic core out of curiosity or greed. Jake replied that they would manage it the same way any civilized society managed a crisis. He said they would use cooperation and transparency and shared purpose to work through the problem. He proposed forming a joint task force that included representatives from all species. He suggested including both the founding races and the younger civilizations in this effort. He said they should study the seals together and find ways to reinforce them. He added that they should also prepare contingencies in case the seals failed despite their best efforts. Miraset said that Jake was speaking of a level of unity that had never existed anywhere in the known galaxy. Her tone suggested she thought such unity was impossible to achieve. Jake responded simply. He said that maybe it was time for that kind of unity to finally exist. He stated that secrets festered and grew worse over time. He argued that truth, even painful and difficult truth, could be dealt with directly and honestly. Lisa spoke up again with conviction. She said that humanity had a saying about this exact situation. She quoted the old phrase that sunlight was the best disinfectant. She explained that hidden things grew corrupt, but exposed things could be cleaned and healed. Jake took a step toward the council members and made his final offer. He said he would delay the automatic transmission of their data to Earth for 1 standard month. He explained that during that time, the Galactic Council would announce a major summit with full disclosure of the truth. He said they would tell everyone about the architects and the seals and the threat from the outside. He proposed inviting all species to participate in a joint an effort to address the problem together. Grandar asked what would happen if the council refused Jake's offer. His tone was less hostile now and more genuinely curious about how the human would respond. Jake answered honestly. He said that if they refused, then the data would transmit automatically as scheduled. He noted that humanity would learn the truth without any context or preparation. He warned that the council would then have to deal with billions of humans who felt betrayed by the civilizations they had trusted. He made it clear that he did not want that outcome. He stated that he believed none of them wanted that result. He concluded by saying they should handle this situation correctly from the beginning. The council members sat in silence for several long moments. Finally, Velkov spoke with a note of something in his voice that might have been respect or admiration. He said that Jake was either the bravest or most foolish being he had ever encountered in his long life. He suggested that Jake might actually be both brave and foolish at the same time. He looked to his fellow council members. He said that despite his concerns, Jake's words carried genuine wisdom. He admitted that they had maintained their deception for so long that they had forgotten. There might be another way to handle the situation,